what I work in is assessment and accreditation, and I do it at Sacramento State University. And just very briefly, the challenge that I face is that we have to collect a lot of assessment data for accreditation. And it's very meaningful maybe at the program level, but not so meaningful when we try to scale it up to the college and the university levels for reporting on student learning outcomes. But I think I found a way to not only make it scale to that level, but maybe even to the system. So what I want to show you are some principles that I've come across for semantic metadata that can be applied to the kind of program assessment that we do at the university and try to retain meaning and integrity of the data at all levels. So this is what I do in my university and with assessment, which is to try to assess a conceptual framework. If you're curious about what that is, we draw it out of, well, you've all been at universities and probably have done this before or experienced it, is take this from our mission and vision and then try to prove that what we do is we're producing future teachers. I'm in a college of education or school psychologists, et cetera, that we're actually doing these things. This is the way I feel when accreditation comes around, because this is what they're looking for. Are we actually assessing our conceptual framework? And it's a little challenging. So what we do is we have these professional competencies. We say we produce competent professionals. These are the indicators. We say that we produce reflective leaders, and these are the indicators. And we say that we're producing engaged professionals, and these are the indicators. So this is how we do this sort of assessment of the conceptual framework. Just very briefly, where I'm at, as I said, is at a College of Ed. We have a BA branch, we have a credential branch, and we have a graduate branch. And somehow, I'm supposed to demonstrate that we're saying that we're doing what we actually say we're doing, which is whatever our conceptual framework says. The way that the faculty see it is a little different, because they only really see their program. They really don't understand why we would want to do this kind of assessment and why we have to report out on a conceptual framework for this entire university. So what we do then, or pardon me, for the entire college. So what we do is we operationalize our learning outcomes, and you can see that we did that for each one of the ones that I showed you earlier. And then the next thing that we do is we take all of our program standards and we do this alignment. And once again, faculty are really only care and are only concerned about maybe with their own program standards. This is where I live. This is where I have to try to make sure that these alignments work. Making things a little more challenging is that we have to identify assessments, direct assessments and indirect assessments of all of those learning goals. And again, at the program level, it makes sense, but when you try to scale this up, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I spend my time working with faculty on curriculum mapping and student learning outcomes. We make these assessment maps, for example, and the first time that I did this about in 2012, this is what we came up with, which is, as you can see, and it's impossible to see it in the back, it doesn't matter because it really isn't very good, but we have the results, which are means on whatever direct assessments we have of student learning, their signature assignments, performance assessments, and survey results. And again, we're using means, and I am aware of the problem with using means for reporting. Percentages are better, but this is the best that we had. And then we would produce these little charts that look like this, and that's really all you could do. So what I've been trying to do is to try to get away from static charts and use things that are more interesting, and that's when I happened upon Google's tool that apparently they've abandoned, which is unfortunate, but it's led me in some other directions that you might actually find interesting. So here's where I began. I was using R, GViz, and Shiny Server for some of this, and I'll just give you an example of taking a student learning outcome that we have, taking the assessments that are aligned and give you a view of what it looks like. Again, it's the same table. I have my program on one column, my year on the other, I've got my department on the other, and then I have the results of the measures that are associated with them. And what is possible is now that I can select off individual learning outcomes that we want to look at and then see how they apply to each one of the programs. This might not sound so revolutionary for some of you maybe who are already doing this sort of thing, but in the College of Ed world, it is a little bit, and in the university world too, because now I can see the trajectories of where student perceptions, for example, and their performance track over time. What I have, for example, is here the survey results, where if we're asking the students, do you feel confident that we prepared you to be a leader or whatever, they can tell us. And then if we make a change, let's say, and then those perceptions go up, we have something that we can talk about, what change was significant, and so forth. Same thing with the direct measures. When we're observing our students doing some kind of performance task or performance-based measure out in the field, we can see how we're scoring and rating them. If I were to use this as an example, there's been some kind of a fall, for example, in the student perception. But here it looks like maybe the objective assessment is saying that they're doing really great. There's a mismatch of some kind, and it would be interesting to talk about. So I tried to scale this up maybe to university level assessment. I have to deal with WASC all the time, and for those of you who know what that's like, and they've just changed their name, don't know what it is, but I better find out soon, is the same type of thing where we're looking at learning outcomes, we're aligning assessments to those learning outcomes. I get the same kind of data, and I can do the same kinds of things, and I can get the same boring bar charts that I had before if I want them, or a line chart, but we can get something out of it. So scaling this up to system-wide, because what I'm thinking is that this probably could work for the entire, I'm part of the California State University system. There's 23 campuses, one virtual, so I guess that'd be 23 and a half or 24, depending on how you count. And you could do it, but you need to turn to other things. And so that's what I came across this when I was looking for a solution. And so SDMX is something that I know all of you are aware of, but this was new to me. Is powering European Union economic data. If it's good enough for the European Union, then it could be good for us. And the principles that I'm looking at include how data cubes are constructed and taxonomies, and using Excel to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And that's where I encountered the Public Data Explorer. I've posted on that page that I showed you earlier the data sets where you can download it yourselves and you can run it and give it a shot. And it does really all of the things, and it runs on an iPad that I showed you that I had running in Shiny. How much time have I got? Is the hook, getting the hook ready? Oh, good, okay. This tool does everything that I said before, but it appears that they've abandoned it and they're not updating it. They're not updating the DSPL that they're using. So through the wonders of the internet, I have encountered two people at Metadata Technology who work with SDMX, and working with them, they loaded all the data into the system they developed. And you might want to take a look at it if this is the sort of thing that you're interested in. You get another hard-to-read data set that you can slice and dice at will, and you can put it in R, and I have the R code up if this is also something that you're interested in. You can run the code. It will, in fact, crash your browser. That's the only thing I wanted to mention. At least it does with mine. But what you'll do if you want to give it a shot is you can select off campuses, departments, and programs and run your analyses. Where I think this could go next. Well, I've watched this very interesting YouTube presentation, Power of Big Data and Psychographics. I don't know if you've seen it, but it is really, really worth a watch, in my opinion. It has something to say, I think, about the election, but the way that they're using data and the way that they're doing analyses, I think could apply to how we're doing these types of assessments at the university. Wow, thank you so much. Any questions at all?